So, that gosh darn production sound mixer didn't do his job, and now you've got to record some ADR. Or maybe you were the production sound mixer and future use problem is now your problem. Whatever the reason, it's okay, because ADR is actually a very important skill you need to learn if you want to have a career in post sound. Most feature films these days have some level of ADR in them. Today I'm going to walk you through how to prepare for your ADR session, record the session, and then edit those recordings back into the dialogue tracks. Now thankfully this film didn't need much ADR, but I've gone ahead and picked out a few lines anyway just to use as an example for today's video. So let's go ahead and make a new session and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is duplicate one of my sessions. You could do your bass session or your dialogue session. I'm going to go off my dialogue session because I may have some markers in there I want to look at. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that whole session folder, and I'm going to rename it ADR. Then I'm going to rename the session itself to ADR version 1. Once our session is open, we need to begin creating cues for the ADR session. Now there's a lot of different cueing softwares that you can use. I'm going to be using one called QPro. It's by a company called Non-Lethal Applications. And it's my preferred software just because it has a really nice integration with Pro Tools. They collaborated with Avid to create a really smooth experience for creating cues. The downside is it's not cheap, so to buy a permanent license is pretty expensive. But thankfully it's not too expensive to rent on a month-by-month basis, so I just rent it whenever I need to do an ADR session. However, if you're looking for a good free alternative, I'd recommend PT Sessions. I've left a link in the description of both of these softwares so you can go check them out. Today I'm going to show you how to do it in QPro, but you could translate this to whatever software you like to use. The first thing we need to do is create an aux input track, and so I'm going to do that in my utility folder. It's mono, and I'm calling it QPro. And on this track, we're going to load up the QPro Connect plugin. This will automatically launch the QPro application on our system and connect it to our Pro Tools session through this plugin. This plugin is also going to generate some beeps to go along with our visual indicators, so you're going to want to make sure that this track is routed somewhere you can hear it. I'm going to route it to my utility bus. Then over in QPro, we need to create our character tracks. So if you hit this little plus button here, you can create a new character track, and then you can change the settings. So I'm going to name this one Gary, and I'm going to change the color to green. Then back in Pro Tools, I'm just going to select the waveform of my first line of dialogue I want to do, and I'm going to use the shortcut Command F7, and that will create a cue in QPro for my selection. I can go ahead and choose my character, and then I can type in what the line is. Once that's done, I'm going to hit Apply, and as you can see in QPro, it created the cue for us, so if we go ahead and zoom in, you can see that that is the cue with the line we typed in with our selection in Pro Tools. Now, if you look between the two, our selection is actually linked between QPro and Pro Tools. So if you need to fine tune this, you can, and just look at your video and find the point where he starts speaking, and you can fine tune the positions of these to match the length of the line. As you can see, QPro has created some overlays for us with time code as well as the line of the dialogue. And if we back up a few seconds, we can actually see there's a whole little countdown, both visually and audibly with beeps.
Don't make this about you.
And all these indicators will make it a lot easier for our actor in the booth to time their performance to the picture. So now I'm going to go through and create a cue for every line of dialogue. So here's the next one.
It's my birthday.
I'm going to select it. Command F7.
Yeah, I'm sorry, we still can.
All right, so now I have cues for every single line of dialogue I need to record. Now, sometimes you might have a few lines that are really close together, and in those cases, sometimes the overlays can overlap a previous cue. So what you can do is select the cue, and if you hit Command M, you can actually mute the region just like in Pro Tools. So a lot of times I will actually mute the cues that I'm not using currently and just keep the cue that I'm about to use unmuted. If you double click a region, it will bring up the settings for that cue. And you can see QPro has this really great recording done checkbox we can hit, and that will put a little check mark on the region to let us know that we finished that cue. And that's a great way to keep track of what you've done in your session. All right, here is our vocal booth. As you can see, I routed the video out of Pro Tools to the TV. That way the actor can see the picture as well as the ADR cues themselves. Now, you've got to be very cognizant of mic placement when you're recording ADR because you want to as closely match the mic choice and mic placement of the production dialogue so that it fits in. Ideally, you want to use the exact same boom microphone that was used on set, and you also want to match placement as well. For instance, if you have an extreme wide shot, you shouldn't be putting the actor 3 inches away from the microphone. That's just never going to sound natural and like the production dialogue. Our goal is not to record the best, fullest sounding voiceover of all time. Instead, we want to match the production audio as closely as possible, minus the negative aspects for which we are needing to record ADR. If the only onset issue is that a plane went by during the line of dialogue, we want to create the exact same sounding dialogue, but without the plane. If you are doing something like an extreme wide shot where the microphone truly was too far away to pick up the dialogue, well then of course you want to bring the microphone close enough to where you can actually hear the dialogue, but not as close to the actor as you would for an extreme close-up shot. Another thing that can give you more options in post is using multiple microphones. I may put one microphone at a medium close distance to the actor and the other one on the other side of the room, and then when I'm editing I can decide which one I think most closely matches the production dialogue. You're probably not going to be able to match the production dialogue 100% in a studio, and so there are plenty of tools we'll be using in the mixing phase to further enhance this ADR. Things like reverb and EQ can go a long way to matching it to your production sound. But we still want to work as hard as we can to get as close as possible in the recording phase so we set ourselves up for success later on down the line. The lines we're recording today are just basic close-up shots, so I'm going to set the microphone to a normal booming close-up distance that I would expect on set. So somewhere around here is probably going to be a good distance for these shots. Now that my distance is set right, I'm going to go ahead and plug it into one of the tie lines on the wall panel of the booth and then pick up the signal in the control room. That was hard to plug in. Back in the control room, I'm going to take the signal from the booth and route that into a preamp in our rack. I'm going to turn on phantom power, turn up the gain, and then I'm going to take the output of that preamp and send that into Pro Tools. Now that we have our mic patched into our system, we need to create a couple tracks in Pro Tools. The first thing I've done is I've gone ahead and disabled all my dialogue tracks in my dialogue folder just to keep things clean, and I've extracted the few lines we're going to be working on into a work track just so we can quickly reference the original audio. The first thing I'm going to do is create the track to record to, so this is just going to be a basic mono audio track, and I'm going to call this ADR 1. The output will be my dialogue bus, and I'll set the input to the channel that I patch my microphone to. I also like to have an additional auxiliary track that's always on, that's just monitoring that microphone signal. And I like that because it allows us to hear the actor in the room all the time during the session so we can communicate with them. We could do that with input monitoring on the record track itself, but the problem is if you have input monitoring on, then you can't hear back the takes. So just to save myself from having to click this button over and over again, I just create a separate track. So I'm going to create a new mono aux input and just call this ADR monitor. The input will be set to the same channel as my microphone, and I'll set the output of this to my utility bus. And lastly, we need to route a few signals to the actor's headphones so that they can hear what's going on. The first thing you're going to want in their headphones is a talkback mic. My studio has one right here that's automatically routed, so I don't need to worry about that. In addition to that, this room has 4 return channels that I can use in Pro Tools to send audio to their headphones. So for that, I'm going to go to Setup and I/O and set up those outputs. Then on the bus tab, I'm going to create some buses that I can use to route that audio. I'm going to do 2 mono channels, and then I'm going to do 1 stereo channel. This first mono bus will be called Q, and those are going to be the beeps that Q Pro generates. The next bus I'm going to call mic, and that's going to be the actor's microphone so that they can hear themselves in their own ears. And the last one I'm going to call reference, and that's where we're going to send the reference audio of the onset sound so they can hear the performance they're trying to match to. And then I'm going to map each of these buses to the appropriate output. Then I'm going to route the Q Pro auxiliary channel to that Q output we created and turn it up. Then I'm going to route our ADR monitor track to the mic bus. Next, I'm going to send our reference audio to the reference bus. All right, now that we have our microphone patched into Pro Tools, our return channels patched back out to the booth, we're ready to go ahead and bring our actor into the booth and start the session. My friend Austin has kindly offered to come in and help us with this part of the tutorial, so I've gone ahead and put him in the booth.
Hey guys.
What I usually do is let the actor listen through the cue a few times just so they can get an idea of the rhythm of it, and also they get used to all the beeps and the flashes they're going to see on screen. All right, Austin, so I'm going to go ahead and play through this first cue here so you can get used to what that looks like.
Don't make this about you.
And once they've heard the line a few times, we can go ahead and start laying down some takes. Sometimes an actor will want to do a few rehearsal takes, and usually I'll end up secretly recording them while they do the rehearsal takes just because you never know, it may end up being good. But we'll go ahead and just start going for some takes here. The first thing I'm going to do on my track is create a new playlist because I usually have my unnumbered playlist be sort of my comp list, and then I have playlists after that be my actual takes. So once I've created my first playlist, I'm going to go ahead and go for a take. You ready, Austin?
Ready.
All right, here we go.
Don't make this about you.
So for the first couple takes, I usually like to have the audio of the original recording going so they can hear how close they are. But once they get pretty close, I'll usually turn that off so we can hear them by themselves and see how it's matching to picture. All right, so we'll do one more take here.
Don't make this about you.
Nice, that was much better in sync. This time I'll turn off the original track so you're just by yourself.
Don't make this about you.
I think that was it. That seems like perfect. And then once we have a take that we're happy with, I'll go ahead and move back to my very first playlist and we'll move on to the next cue. And now we just repeat the process through every cue until we have enough takes. Well, thanks, Austin. Appreciate your help on this. Okay, so now that we have finished our recording session, we're ready to go ahead and start comping these takes into our actual ADR tracks. Now, this is a pretty simple process, all things considered. We're really just going to listen through each take to hear which one sounds best and most closely matches the visuals, and then we will bring that up to our comp playlist, and then I may do any timing adjustments as needed. So let's go ahead and listen through this first line. First, for reference, let's hear the production dialogue.
Don't make this about you.
So that's what we're trying to match. Now on these comp lanes, you can click this button to solo what is on the particular comp lane. So you'll probably want to set the shortcut solo tracks with an edit selection. I have mine set to Shift S, so I can quickly select a track and hit Shift S, and that will solo that particular take. So let's go ahead and listen to this first take.
Don't make this about you.
That's pretty good. Let's hear the next one.
Don't make this about you. Don't make this about you.
That one I don't like, so I'm going to mute it.
Don't make this about you.
All right, I think I like the performance of this one the most, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that and go up and paste onto my main comp lane. And then now I'm going to fine tune the actual timing of it. So I can look at the production dialogue and see that we've got already some time discrepancies. So assuming our production dialogue's in time, we can kind of adjust this and see how things sound like.
Don't make this about you. Don't make this about you.
And if you hit Shift Space, you can play back in half speed, which sometimes helps.
Don't make this about you. Don't make this about you.
So it looks like his about, and I can see the waveform feels a little bit early. So what I may do is extract that. If you select a clip and hit Command E, you can extract that and move it around. So I'm going to do that and see if I can maybe fine tune this a little bit.
Don't make this about you. Don't make this about you.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty good. So I just slight its timing of this phrase here kind of fixed it. And so yeah, now that that's comped, I will go ahead and just add crossfades to these and move on to the next line.
It's my birthday.
Now, of course, as we're hearing this dialogue, it's timed well. The performance was good, aside from it, being a different person. But it's not really sitting in the scene well if we compare it to the dialogue from the production, right?
It's my birthday.
Right, that sounds tonally very, very different. And that's a problem we're going to address in the mixing phase. We're going to use EQ and reverb to really make that lean in. But for now, we're just going to make sure we get all of these takes chosen and timed to picture. All right, once you have finished grabbing all the takes you like and timed them, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the playlist view so we can just see our final comp. And now that we've picked out all our takes and timed them to picture, we're going to hop back into our dialogue editing session and import this track back into that session. All right, so we are back in our finished dialogue session, and I'm going to go ahead and go to my dialogue folder, go find the last track of my dialogue folder, and I'm going to go up to File, Import, and Session Data. Then I'm going to find the latest version of my ADR session, open that up, and I'm going to look through and find my ADR track, which is right here, and I'm just going to import that one track. And make sure audio media options, you could do copy from source media or you could do link to source media. I'm going to do copy just so that I know all of my dialogue is inside my dialogue folder. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And you can see it has brought in my ADR track. And it's already routed to the dialogue bus. This is the advantage of setting up all of your I/O ahead of time. It means that you can move data between sessions and everything is automatically routed the way it should be. And here we have all of our takes. Now I'm going to go ahead and hide all of the tracks that are not related to this scene real quick so we can work. And now what we want to do is basically write room tone over the production dialogue track so that we can maintain room tone but keep the dialogue from our new ADR tracks. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and search for this scene's room tone. So I'm going to search for tone in my clips list. And here we have tone for scene 1 that I created. So I'm going to pull that onto my work track. Then we're going to select a portion of the room tone from the middle, just like before, and copy it. And then we're going to find the first line of dialogue we re-recorded, which is this one right here. I'm going to select over it, and then I'm going to go to Paste Special and use Repeat to fill selection. Then we can crossfade it.
Don't make this about you.
Now I'm going to go through and do the same for the rest of these clips. And with that, we've finished out the ADR for the film. Now, of course, we still have a lot more work to do to make this ADR sounding good. We have to do EQ and reverb to make sure it actually sits in the scene. But we're done with the dialogue editing portion of it, so we'll handle all of that when we get to the mixing phase. But for now, let's go ahead and move on to the next chapter, which is Foley.